Good morning. Welcome to episode 15 of the Hockey Variety Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I wanted to get out a quick episode before the weekend here. It's actually Friday morning. Expect 3 episodes coming up here. I'm thinking about doing 2 tomorrow. If everything goes according to plan, I've got a pretty free Saturday tomorrow, so I kind of want to plan ahead and do a few episodes early. But yeah, today will be pretty quick because I still have to work today. But I don't know. I'm in a bit of a chatty mood this morning. I played drop-in hockey last night. And those nights always go late. And whenever my fiance has a shift the next day, I don't get a lot of sleep. I sleep like 4 or 5 hours. So a little sleep deprived today. But, I was thinking about doing an episode after work instead. But I don't know. I'm not even going to try to go to my game in the city tonight because I'm pretty tuckered out. Plus, it's supposed to snow. So I don't really want to make the 1 hour drive. Speaking of my team, speaking of my boys, I went to my game in the city on Saturday. And I think I mentioned this on the podcast. I was still not waiting, but I was still trying to get my first goal of the season. Keep in mind, I've been playing defense. I've been playing defense most of the season up till this point. I think I've done a pretty good job. I'm very much a stay-at-home defenseman. I don't generate much offense, but there's rarely a breakaway when I'm on the ice. There's never a breakaway when I'm on the ice because I play it pretty safe. And sometimes I play it too safe, but I think I'm getting better. I'm trying to help out in the offensive zone a bit more without sacrificing defense. So, if the opportunity's there, I'll creep in. But if it's not, I'll just be hanging back at the blue line. But anyways, Saturday, I went up to my co-team rep, the guy that's been doing the lines lately while I've been away. And he's probably going to do the lines indefinitely, I think, because he's done a very good job. Takes a lot more risks than I do, but I kind of like that. Because I remember when I was doing lines, I put the same guys together all season. And we had a good season, so maybe there's something there. But I kind of like how my buddy mixes things up. I do. I think it keeps things interesting. And anyways, Saturday, played in the city, and I got my first goal. I went up to my co-rep who was making the lines, and I was like, hey, you should put me at forward tonight. I want to score a goal. So, yeah. And, I didn't even have a great game, but yeah, I got my first goal. I was on the same line with a good buddy of mine. And yeah, he got the assist on my goal. That was nice. I think it was a 2-on-1. And rather than trying to get the pass over the other guy's, I have more confidence in my shot than making the pass on a 2-on-1. And plus the puck was wobbling too. The puck was not flat. So I just okay, get it on net. Maybe my buddy will get the rebound coming on the other side. But when the puck's on edge and sometimes you just fire it at the net, it can go anywhere, really. The big thing is just getting the shot off. And this shot went top shelf blocker side. And the goal looked a lot nicer than it was. It looked like a really nice shot. But considering I knew the puck was on edge, and I think it kind of just cradled into the blade of my stick when I got it off, it just went flying top shelf. So yeah, it looked a lot nicer than it actually was, but they don't ask how, right? So I'm very happy I got that monkey off my back. And it was the game-changing 9-1 goal. Yeah, we would have been in trouble if we didn't score that 9-1 goal. Us being the team that had 9 up till that point. We ended up winning, I think, 11-2. It was a pretty good butt kicking. But I think we needed one of those. I think we needed a game where we just dominated. The other team was clearly missing some key players, and we had a lot of offense. So that was a good game. Glad I went. My boys got a game tonight. They got a game Sunday. I'm going to try to make it to that one. It's my fiance's birthday, so we're going to try to do, I don't know, have a little day in the city, have a nice lunch or something, and I'm going to go to my game. I don't know if she's going to come watch. I have a feeling she won't. She's not big on hockey. but you know what? I really don't mind that at all. I kind of like hockey being my thing. Uh, and it's cool. It's cool when she goes to some of my games. Don't get me wrong, but and sometimes if there's like a big game like in the playoffs on TV or something, she'll come watch with me. I think we watched the World Junior Finals this past Christmas together. Uh, and yeah, she's not big on hockey, but she doesn't hate it either. I think it's cool that she cares about something I really care about. Clearly, I have my own podcast, so okay. So I got just a couple things I'm going to talk about today. I got a little bit where I'm going to do some predictions about some of the big trade pieces at the trade deadline this year. There's a lot of talk about the trade deadline right now. We saw Bo Horvat make his way to the New York Islanders. We saw Vladimir Tarasenko make his way to the Rangers. And you got to think those two teams are done, right? But who knows? The Rangers, they historically have brought in some pretty big names. So maybe they'll, start doing that again. But it's tough with the cap, right? Like, the Rangers used to just be able to throw money at guys because there wasn't a cap. So if your team generated a lot of if your team brought in a lot of money, like the Leafs, like the Rangers, they can bring in those big guys and not have to worry about the cap. The thing is, the Rangers only won one cup during that period, that being in 1994. So, I had an idea too, actually. So, going to talk about some trade pieces, and then I'm actually going to talk about something I mentioned last episode. I want to talk about my NHL bucket list. I want to talk about things I want to see happen in the NHL during my lifetime. So I'm going to say the next 50 years. I'd like to live to 80. I would. I'd like to live till my 80s. We'll see. Things happen, right? Knock on wood, right? But I want to just go through some things I want to see happen in the next 50 years. And I think everything I cover in my little list, I got 5 things. I think they're all going to happen. So I'm going to talk about that. And then, no fantasy pick or anything like that. But again, I'm hoping to have a Sunday episode going, maybe pre-record a midweek one. Stay tuned for that. And one last thing I want to do before we get started here. So one thing, anyone have like a really useless skill or like a really useless like piece of trivia they know? I am very proud to say I can recite all of the NHL champions up until about the mid 70s, just off the top of my head. And I'm hoping to, I should really start like studying a bit more because I want to be able to go farther. But it seems like when you get to the 60s and 70s, you have a lot of teams that they've won a bunch. So it's a matter of just kind of knowing how long their streak was, or, because like the Habs won a bunch of cups, obviously, but their kind of cup streak gets broken here and there. And I have a tough time remembering. I have an easier time remembering when like individual teams have won. Like that's why I find the 2000s a bit easier in the 90s. But anyways, there's obviously no way you can tell that I'm not cheating right now. So you just have to take my word for it. I don't have the list of Stanley Cup champions in front of me. I haven't even looked at the list recently. You just have to take my word for it. I'm going to see how far back I can go confidently. I know Steve Dangle did this recently, but I do want to prove that I am better than him because, Okay, so here we go. Colorado. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go from now, and then I'm going to go in reverse order back until I'm going to get stuck in like the 70s. I know that's how it's going to go. So Colorado, Tampa, St. Louis, Washington, Pittsburgh, Chicago, LA, Chicago, LA, Boston, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Anaheim, Carolina. 2004 was Tampa. The New Jersey Devils, Detroit. 2001, I think I'm at right now. That's Colorado. 2000 was the Devils again. 1999 was Dallas, and then Detroit won 2. 1996 was Colorado, and then the Devils, and 94 was the Rangers, and then 93 was the Habs. 92 and 91 were both the Pittsburgh Penguins. 1990 was the Oilers. That was like the random one they won without Gretzky. 89 was Calgary. Edmonton, Montreal, Edmonton, and then the Islanders won 4, so that takes us to 1980. And before that, I believe the Habs won 4, so that would be 79, 78, 77, and 76. And then here's where I start to get stuck. I think the Flyers won 2, and then Boston had 1. And then I'm going to say the Habs. And that would have been 72. And that's where I'm going to give up because I'm not very confident on that. So I'm going to pause the video right now, and I'm just going to check and see how I did there in the 70s. Because I know I got everything right before that, but again, it's the 70s. So just kind of recap the 70s, though. Habs won 4, Philly, Boston, Montreal. Okay, I'm going to look this up. Okay, so I was close, but as I thought, I did make a mistake there. So Montreal won 4 at the end of the 70s there, and I was correct about Philly winning 2, but after Philly, it was actually Montreal, then Boston, and then Montreal, then Boston again to kind of close out the 70s there. So I got to 1974 without making a mistake, and I think if I study up, I should be able to go farther than that. But yeah, very useless skill I have there, I guess. But I guess it's kind of cool being able to recite the Stanley Cup champions from the last 50 years. And I'm going to come back and watch this recording after I'm done recording, and I will see which year I missed, because I probably skipped a year. Okay, let's talk about trade rumors. That's right. Here, I'm just going to fix the dimensions here. My screen has an annoying, purple rectangle just hanging out at the bottom. I'm just going to fix the dimensions here. Okay, never mind. It's not really possible, but that's okay. You can see Joel Edmondson's name there at the bottom of the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, in case you're wondering. All right, right here on your screen is the top 10 trade bait. It's the current trade bait list at the time of recording by TSN. Okay, you see Timo Meier at the top there. Him being, I don't know, I guess this is ranked by I don't know, who's the hot pickup right now? I don't know. That sound kind of creepy, but I don't know. I guess it's in order of popularity or how beneficial the player will be. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just kind of ranked by who's the talk of the town right now. Maybe who's most likely to go. I don't know. Okay, so I got that, and I also got a picture of Erik Karlsson on the side there because I plan on talking about him. And I'm going to talk a bit about where I think these guys will go. Now, disclaimer, I'm not Elliot Friedman, okay? I'm not Ray Ferraro. I'm not Darren Pang, all right? I don't look into this stuff very much. This is just kind of my gut. I didn't even look at the cap situation. I'm just assuming teams will make this work. But I'm just kind of going off of what I've been hearing and what I think makes sense. And I think it's nice to have something I can go back on and look at after the trade deadline and see how many of these I was right on. So stay tuned, because in just under a month, I will do a podcast where I look at how wrong I am, but I'm sure I'll get at least one of these predictions right. Okay, so that's my prediction. I predict I will get one right. So yeah, and if you disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the comments. I would love to hear. You probably know more about this than I do. So there you go. Okay, I'm going to talk about that gentleman on the right before I get into the list. I don't think Erik Karlsson goes anywhere. That contract is just gross. In the offseason, once teams, once they see how much the cap goes up by, I think maybe, right? But I don't think he's going to go at the trade deadline. It's just a bit too complicated right now. Let's not forget he has a terrible contract. I know there's talks about the Sharks not wanting to retain, but it's like, okay, if you commit to a rebuild, why don't you retain, right? Like what do you need cap? What do you need cap space for? Like, you don't really have any big names coming up because you're trading out Meyer. So if the Sharks do trade him, like, just retain. If you're gonna rebuild, just retain. Who cares? You'll get back a lot more for Karlsson if you're willing to retain. And the Sharks need to seriously think about the future. So I don't think he goes anywhere, but maybe we see a big offseason move. And just going back to a few weeks ago, a few episodes ago, where I talked a bit about the asking price being like 3 first-round picks, I still don't think that's happening. I don't. The Sharks should... I don't think they should be afraid to pull the trigger if there's some good offers out there, like prospects and picks, obviously. Like, I heard the rumored asking price, like the rumored offer Edmonton made. Take that with a grain of salt, and it looked pretty good. It had Evan Bouchard, it had some picks, it had some stuff, right? So, had a contract in there like Tyson Barrie, but I think that's more of a rumor than anything. So, yeah, I don't think Karlsson goes anywhere. Okay, so again, I didn't look too much into this. This is just kind of going off of some rumblings I've heard and what I think makes sense. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'm just going to go right into it now. Okay, so Timo Meier, we'll start with him. I'm going with the Devils. That's what I've been hearing. It makes sense. He gets to play with his countryman, Nico Hischier. I'm pretty sure they're friends. I don't know if that matters, but yeah. I do want to talk about his qualifying offer because I feel like people blow this out of proportion like crazy. Whenever you hear Timo Meier's $10 million qualifying offer, people are like, whoa, that's a big deal. It's not a big deal. Calm down, okay? And here's why it's not a big deal. Meier's an RFA. If he goes to a team like the Devils, okay, he will want to re-sign. He will. Why would he go somewhere? Why would he get traded somewhere just to be like, nah, I'm good? I think it depends kind of on what team he gets traded to. And I can't remember if the Sharks are letting him talk to other teams about contract extensions. But no, I don't think the qualifying offer is a concern because he's going to sign long-term. And if you don't know what I mean, pretty much what this means is that no matter what team he gets traded to, they have to offer him $10 million for 1 year, and he has the option to accept that. Otherwise, he becomes a UFA, which means all of this was for nothing, and a team probably gave up a ton just for a player to walk as a UFA. So he's going to sign no matter where he goes, okay? I'm not saying he's going to sign for 8 years. I'm not saying he's going to sign for 2 years, but he's not going to sign for 1 year, okay? And no general manager will make this deal just to not make him a good offer on a contract. So he's going to re-sign long-term wherever he goes, okay? And like minimum 3 years, let's say, okay? The qualifying offer is not a concern. People just like to bring it up. Okay. But yeah, I'm thinking the Devils. I should probably speed this up a bit. So Jacob Chychrun, there was a lot of rumors last week about the Kings working out a deal with Arizona. There's talks about maybe Brant Clark being in that, and then I heard Brant Clark definitely won't be in that. I can't remember what they said about Byfield, but anyways, there was some rumblings about that, and then the fact that it didn't work out, I think, tells a lot of people that he's not going to the Kings. But that's still my pick, just because, where there's smoke, there's probably some fire. Yeah, that's my pick. I don't know. I have a feeling they're still working things out behind the scenes, but we'll see. And I did really try to put more West teams in here because I feel like a lot of Eastern Conference teams have been tied to a lot of these players. So I do want to try to mix it up a bit. One thing that is not mixing it up a bit is Ryan O'Reilly going to the Vegas Golden Knights. That's something that has been rumored quite a bit. I think that'd be a good fit. You know, they kind of lost their big two-way forward in Mark Stone due to injury, so I think they'll want to try to fill that void. It doesn't hurt to bring in a center. Maybe he'll turn things around. So I know O'Reilly's having a down season, but don't forget the Blues kind of suck right now. Okay, and maybe that is because of O'Reilly. I'm sure that's part of it, but maybe he just needs to change his scenery. I could see this being like a pure rental situation too. So yeah, I'm going with Vegas, but I think O'Reilly could go to a lot of different places if the team he goes to is willing to make the cap work. Okay. Gavrikov from the Columbus Blue Jackets, defensive defenseman. I picked Toronto because Toronto always seems to be linked to a defensive defenseman, and you see I have them at the bottom there. By the way, if you see two teams up on this list, I know you see Toronto there twice, you see LA there twice. I think that they're going to make either one or the other. Okay, so I don't think Toronto's going to go for all three players I have them next to. I think they go for one, and I think it's a defenseman. And that's just like a historical thing. Like Toronto always seems to go for a defenseman, like maybe even a stay-at-home defenseman at the deadline. I think they're just going to kind of keep that trend going. So, yeah, I think Toronto's going to try to pick up one of these guys. Holy guacamole. Jake McCabe has... Oh, it's 14 points. Oh, I thought that was 14 goals. My bad. Okay. All right. So I've got Pittsburgh and Colorado there. I got them bigger there because I have them both in on Barbashev and or Bertuzzi. Pittsburgh likes to pick up wingers at the deadline. I think Colorado would want a bit more forward depth, just considering how prone they are to injuries. So, yeah, and I'm pretty confident in Pittsburgh making a move. I do. I really think they're going to try to keep this whole Crosby, Malkin, Letang thing together. Go for another run. I don't think they'll go anywhere in the playoffs. I don't even think they'll win a series or win a round, rather. But I do think they make a splash. If I were to take a guess, though, I'd say Barbashev to Pittsburgh, Bertuzzi to Colorado. But who knows? I think Colorado could be in on a lot of these players, including Patrick Kane. So yeah, some stuff came out about Patrick Kane not being happy about the Tarasenko contract because that probably, or sorry, the Tarasenko trade, because that probably means that Kane won't be going to the Rangers, and he probably wanted to go to the Rangers. Oh well, but you know, he's gonna go somewhere. I just went with LA and I went with Dallas because, well, Dallas, I've been hearing about them maybe being in on Kane. That'd be interesting. But, you know, I could kind of see Dallas being a place where he'd re-sign too. And I think Kane wants that. Like, don't forget, Kane has a full no movement clause. He has the final say in where he goes. And I think he's looking at teams that are willing to re-sign him next year. Or, sorry, this summer, rather. So, yeah, I think Dallas is one of those teams. I'm just going to pick up the kitten here. Hello. He's been really good, actually. He's been getting a lot better since we got him. And him and the other cat are total bros right now. So, yeah, very happy with the kitten stuff. Okay, so, and I got the Kings up there too. I think if the Kings don't get Chikrin or any of these other guys, I could see King going there. You know, they'd have to play around with the cap, but I don't know. That's just kind of a gut instinct. I think, I mean, it's a desirable location, like I mentioned in episode 9 or whatever that was. LA's a desirable location. They're up and coming team. Maybe they could use some more leadership there. I don't know. I mean, I know you got Kopitar, you got Doughty. We'll see if Quick sticks around for next season, but I don't know. I think it'd be fun seeing him go to LA. That's coming from a Sharks fan, but right now I don't really care. Taves has been linked to Carolina quite a bit. I think they could use another center. They got the cap space too, so I think Carolina could be in on pretty much any of these guys. It'd be cool seeing them try to make something work with Timo Meier. I don't know if they need more wingers right now, though. But, yeah, I don't know. I got Jonathan Taves up there. I think kind of like Kane, wherever he gets traded, he'll probably want to sign for at least next season, maybe longer. Because I do think they each have a bit more mileage left. But, yeah, I could see Taves going to the Canes and maybe re-signing. And then for the last two there, two defensemen, we got Jake McCabe from Chicago and we got Joel Edmondson from Montreal. I got Tampa and Toronto up there. Again, I kind of think that's sort of the move both those teams will make. Maybe just the defenseman, and it might not even be one of the three defensive defensemen I have up there on the screen. I don't think either team is in on Jacob Chikrin just for cap reasons. Like, you're gonna have to re-sign him eventually too, right? So if you bring in if you're Toronto and you bring in Chikrin and then you re-sign him eventually, okay, you can say goodbye to Austin Matthews, you can say goodbye to William Nylander. It'd be tough. However, Matthews is going to be a Coyote in a couple of years. I'm sure that is still my conspiracy theory that I'm sticking to. But yeah, I just got Toronto and Tampa there for my picks for those two. But we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see where all these guys go. Again, I expect to be correct about one of these, we'll say. Okay? There's so many teams in the NHL. There's so many teams that are in or close to the playoffs right now. And we already saw the Islanders make a move without being in a playoff spot. I think we could see some of those teams that are kind of on the brink make a move like this. Calgary, Nashville, out east. I don't think the Panthers can really make a move just for cap reasons. Though I think Duclair is probably on his way out. But yeah, we'll just have to see how this all unfolds. Okay, last thing I'm going to talk about today. Again, it's going to be a short episode. But something I was thinking about. So last episode, I think it was last episode, I mentioned an NHL bucket list. Okay, these are things that I want to see happen before my time on Earth is done. And by that, I mean aliens are going to abduct me within the next 50 years here. Just kidding. But these are some things I want to see in my lifetime as a hockey fan. And these are things I actually think are going to happen too. And keep in mind, a ton can happen in 50 years, okay? So these things that I go through, I don't think they're going to happen tomorrow. I don't even think they're going to happen next season. But I think from now until, oh, don't make me do math, the year 2073, I think all of these things will happen. And I want all of these things to happen. So I got a picture up there from the movie Bucket List. I think I've seen it. I remember this being one of those like overhyped movies that ended up not being like as good. I don't know. It was a pretty good movie, I guess. But yeah, Jack Nicholson, Morgan Freeman, they're both getting old. They want to do some stuff before they die. So they do a bunch of stuff. I think Jack Nicholson has the terminal illness or something. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe I need to rewatch that movie. Seems like the kind of movie my fiance would like. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll watch that together. So, yeah. 5 things I think will happen and I hope happen before I pass away. Okay? And I do have this in order of, I don't want to say how likely, but I don't know. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't really think I have them in a particular order. I just got 5 things. Okay, first thing. I think we will see a team in Quebec City again before I pass away. Now, hear me out, because you're probably surprised. Like, wait, Josh, I thought you hated Canada. First of all, I don't hate Canada. I love living here, okay? I'm critical of the markets in Canada because I think they are way, way, way too harsh on their players to the point where it's affecting their performance, okay? So if you're wondering why Toronto doesn't have a cup yet, I don't want to say the media or the fans. I want to say people that are putting way too much pressure on them and dunking on them. I'm not going to go down that rant again. But I don't hate Canada. And you're probably not surprised, but I'm actually on quote-unquote Team Houston to be the next city to get a team. Because I think a lot of people that are like, Quebec City's next, I don't think they really understand how, like, population and potential works. Like, Quebec's not that big of a city. Houston is a very big city, okay? And you already have another team in Dallas, so there's your rivalry. I don't want to call it an untapped market, but I think there's potential for hockey to truly thrive in Houston. And I think it's a pretty safe investment for the NHL. That being said, if you introduce a 33rd team into the league, you kind of have to bring in a 34th. And then you have to kind of bring in a team out east because you think that, Houston will be in the West. And then you end up putting, I don't know, St. Louis in the East. And then they'll have a problem with it. And yeah, so not going to go down that. But I think Houston has an AHL team, so they got a rink. I'm pretty sure they have a rink. So I think Houston is next. But that being said, when you think about how many NHL teams have been introduced in the last 50 years, and don't get me wrong, I think expansion is going to slow down. I don't know if we see 40 teams in the league before I die, but I think the league will expand to the point where they will bring back a team in Quebec City. And why not call them the Nordiques? Because you have a pretty passionate fan base there. A friend of mine told me this a long time ago, that just in terms of like introducing a new team to Canada and converting a bunch of fans, because think of it this way, I don't know if we see another team in Toronto, because that would be another logical thing to do, is to put a team in like Hamilton or something. But you have a ton of Leafs fans that you then have to convert into Hamilton fans or Mississauga fans or whatever, right? And I don't think that's going to happen. And a long time ago, a friend of mine told me, because you might be thinking the same, like, oh, a lot of those Quebec fans probably became Montreal fans, or you're going to have to convert a bunch of Montreal fans into Quebec City fans. And here's the thing. A friend of mine told me a long time ago, her dad was a fan of the Habs, and she's a fan of the Boston Bruins. So you see that sometimes, where like the parent is the fan of the Habs, and then the kid is like, nah, screw you, Dad, I'm gonna be a Boston fan. But I remember she told me, and this is like years after the Quebec City Nordiques moved to Colorado, she told me her dad, the Habs fan, is still passionately hates the Nordiques. And I'm like, well, they've been in Colorado for like 15 years now. And she was like, no, you don't understand. Habs fans will always dislike the Nordiques till the end of time. That being said, you think the opposite is true, right? A lot of those Nordique fans from the 80s and 90s and whatever, they're probably not Habs fans now. They probably moved on to rooting for a different team, or started following the QMJHL or whatever, right? So there's potential in there. I think you got a fan base already. So on my bucket list, I think we see a team go back to Quebec City. I looked at population in other potential cities in Canada. I'll put Saskatoon as an honorable mention, but they're really big on their CFL there. I don't know. I think Saskatoon could work. That's kind of my number 2, just for the Toronto reasons. I don't think putting a team in Toronto will convert a bunch of Leafs fans, but who knows? This might be the time, because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of fans that are frustrated with the Leafs. So, yeah, Quebec City, I believe in my lifetime, they will get an NHL team. Second thing. So, Ovechkin is very likely going to break Wayne Gretzky's goal record in the next few years. However, in the next 50 years, I think we will see a player surpass both of these guys. Okay? That might seem like a stretch to some people, but I think it's just coming down to scoring is going up, and a lot can happen in 50 years. I'm not saying it's going to be Bedard. I'm not saying it's going to be some guy that gets drafted in the next 10 years, but I think just how the game's going and how the NHL is always trying to increase scoring, I think some players are going to benefit from that. And you just keep thinking about like how much better players are getting. Like if you look just at like individual athleticism and skill, McDavid right now is the best player we have ever seen. Just in terms of like physique and skill, like I think if we put, I'm not saying I'm not comparing production, but I think if you put like Gretzky in today's game and McDavid in today's game, I think McDavid will do better. I'm not saying Gretzky wouldn't be like an absolute legend, because he is. But I think in terms of like an individual skill right now, my pick's McDavid. And you think that's just going to get better and better. And I think we will someday see a player who brings that to the next level and is in even better shape than McDavid, is even faster than McDavid, because a lot can happen in 50 years. So I don't think the NHL goal record, all-time goal record, will be safe. I think we will see a player break that within the next 50 years. Again, I don't think this is going to happen within the next 10 even, but a lot can happen in 50 years, and that's what I think. However, I could totally understand the argument that I am wrong. Also, side note, just kind of a bonus one here. In the next 50 years, I don't think Gretzky's assist record or points record gets broken. I think those are safe till the end of time. That's just me. You know, I think a lot of the things I just said you could apply to points and assists as well. So maybe, but you know, I think those two records are safe till the end of time. But unless they make some like crazy changes to the game to the point where we see like every game go over like 10 goals or whatever. But I don't think the goal record is safe. Okay, number 3. Or number 4, I guess, if I give you that little bonus one. Now this one's a bit vague, but hear me out. I think we start seeing some teams that haven't won a cup in a long time or have never won a cup. That being the teams I have on the screen there. And I know Winnipeg's not up there. I know Seattle, Vegas. I just picked some teams that have been around for a while and haven't won a cup yet. All of these teams have been to the finals at least once, however. Or exactly once? No, Vancouver's been, I think, 3 times now. But I think we start seeing some teams winning Stanley Cups in the next 50 years, teams that haven't won in a while. You can put Toronto up here. You can put Philly up here. They haven't won in a long time. I do think we see Toronto win a cup in my lifetime. I know Canucks fans feel like it's never going to happen, and maybe not, right? Like, there's so many teams right now. There's so many good teams right now. I don't think that's going to change. Like, we're hitting the point where we're seeing good teams miss the playoffs. Because when you have 32 teams, and you think that's going to grow, and only 16 make the playoffs, there are going to be good teams that miss the playoffs. We're going to see Buffalo likely miss the playoffs this year. They're not a bad team. We're likely going to see a team like Nashville or Calgary miss the playoffs. They're not bad teams either. And, you know, out of these 4 teams I have on the screen there, Vancouver, Buffalo, San Jose, Ottawa, you can throw Toronto in there, you can throw Philly in there. There's a chance that none of those teams, or there's a chance that like maybe one of those teams doesn't win a cup in my lifetime. But, you know, I think we start seeing some more teams that haven't won in a while win the Stanley Cup. We saw Washington win their first cup a few years ago. We saw St. Louis win their first cup a few years ago. And I think that trend is going to continue. And I think even as soon as the next like 10, 20 years, we see at least 2 of those teams break their drought. So, anyways, that's my prediction. That one's a bit vague because I don't want to give a specific team because that's just too tough to tell, right? Like, I predict Vancouver will win a cup because, like, there's so much that can happen in 10 years. The Canucks could have a full rebuild and then become a juggernaut. They could be mediocre till I die. Like, who knows? There's just too much unknown there. Speaking of a video idea that I have coming up, I'm hoping to do this weekend, is I want to talk about the cycle of contention, like typically how things go when a team rebuilds, gets better, maybe becomes a contender, playoff team, and then they start to suck again. I want to talk about that cycle, so stay tuned for that in a future episode. Number 4, and no, I don't think that like the Islanders specifically are going to go and become a dynasty again, but I hear people say that the end of dynasties are done now, or that dynasties are done rather, that we'll never see a dynasty ever again. Now, if you don't know what a dynasty is, it's pretty much officially it's 3 Stanley Cups in the span of 4 years. So that could be 3 in a row, or that could be you win one and then win two, or sorry, you win one, you lose, and then you win two, or you win two, lose, and then win another one. So Tampa can still be a dynasty if they win the cup this year. They have to win it this year because they lost to Colorado in the finals last year. But I think we see at least one more dynasty in my lifetime. I do. I don't know. I can see, you know, a GM kind of pulling the strings and assembling this like crazy roster like we saw with the Detroit Red Wings, who I know they're not officially a dynasty, but they were a powerhouse for a long time. I think just the fact that we saw Tampa win 2 in a row recently, we see Pittsburgh win 2 in a row fairly recently. We see Chicago win 2 in 3 years. I know they won 3 in 6 years, but they won 2 in 3 years. LA won 2 in 3 years. And both those teams did come close to a third. I think we see at least one more team in my lifetime become a dynasty. I'm not going to say more than one because I don't want to get my hopes up too much. Just kind of doing the math, I think there's a good chance we'll see 2 more dynasties in my lifetime, but I'm going to say 1. I think 1 is safe. The most recent dynasty being in the 1980s with Edmonton. And then right before that, the Islanders. Right before that, multiple separate dynasties by the Montreal Canadiens. So, I don't know. I could see it happening. I'm pretty confident in saying that we see at least one more dynasty in my lifetime. Okay, here is I don't want to call it the controversial one, okay? But just hear me out. A lot of this has to do with numbers, okay? So, okay, I'm totally prepared for people to start calling me a SJW cuck or whatever, but I think in my lifetime, and I'm quite confident in this, just for math reasons, and I say math just because, like, you see how many players get cycled through the NHL. I think in the next 50 years, and probably a lot sooner than that, I think we see our first openly LGBTQ NHL player, okay? And hear me out. I think this will happen because, first of all, we've already seen our first AHL player who's openly gay. And I'm not just keeping that to those of the gay community because I don't want to rule, like, I kind of want to broaden it, right? We might see our first openly, like, bisexual, maybe transgender. I don't know. I'm not going to get into all of that, but I think this is going to happen, and for a few reasons. Again, we've already seen our first openly gay AHL player, and I just love how much support he got from the NHL community on top of the AHL community. So I think just in terms of how inclusivity is going in the game and how comfortable NHL players are becoming with that and how accepting and supportive they are of that. And I know you can point your finger at a few players, but I think it's pretty safe to say in any NHL locker room right now, and I know people are going to be like, oh no, but there's this team, that team. I think in pretty much any NHL locker room right now, if there was, if the team had an openly gay teammate, I think the team will be on board, supportive, and I think it'd be a huge step in the sport. Now, I want to make a disclaimer, okay? And this should go without saying, but I could see this section maybe getting a bit of criticism if I don't say this, but I don't want to see a player get a shot at the NHL because they're LGBTQ, okay? I don't want them to get an edge because of that, all right? And I don't think that's going to happen either. I think every NHL team is all about icing the best roster. So if the final cut is between one player who's a bit better than another player, and that second player is LGBTQ, I think every single NHL team would pick the first guy because he's a better player. I don't think anyone's going to get an edge because of this. I'm sure there are critics that will say that if we do see an LGBTQ NHL player, there's going to be criticism from the fans, 100%. Why? Because some people are pieces of trash. I'm just gonna say it. Some people are just. I mean, when you look at like what Nazem Kadri went through in the playoffs, like just crazy internet people being racist and stuff. Like with that in mind, there's gonna be crazy people who, and I'm gonna say crazy people because, like, listen, I don't know, if you're not cool with this, like, I think you seriously need to reevaluate things. Okay, so I think this is gonna happen, and I say because of the math, because just so many players get cycled in and out of the NHL. I'm not gonna say we're gonna see an LGBTQ superstar in the league, though that'd be pretty cool. I'm saying we see an LGBTQ NHL player play at least a NHL game because they earned it, because they earned a spot in the lineup. Okay, so again, go ahead, call me SJW, whatever. Do people even say that anymore? But I think this is going to happen. I want to see this happen too. I think this would be a big milestone for inclusivity in the sport. Okay, and you know, we see so much support for people of color in the NHL these days, and we see a lot of recognition going to people like Willie O'Ree, because what he did was a huge accomplishment. Why are we holding a double standard here for members of the LGBTQ community? Like, I don't get that. Maybe I'm just going off of crazy comment section people that are like, stick to hockey. I'm gonna do an episode eventually about those people and why they're hilarious to see, but also it's sad. But yeah, I think this is gonna happen. I want to see this happen. I can't give you a timeline, obviously, but I think it's safe to say in the next 50 years we see this, and I think that'd be really cool. And that's it for today's podcast. It actually went on a little bit longer than I expected, so yeah, you're welcome. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Don't be afraid to comment either. I did talk about some controversial stuff here with the trades and with the bucket list. So yeah, don't be afraid to let me know in the comments what you thought. Definitely open to feedback here. Again, I should have a few more episodes coming out in the next few days. I might post one Sunday and then pre-record one for like middle of the week and post it then just to space them out. But yeah, expect some more content in the next week here. Expect another fantasy pick as well. And yeah, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. It's very much appreciated. We're up to 5 subscribers now. We're trying to get to 10 before the end of 2023. So if you could support me that way, that would be much appreciated. The podcast is on Instagram. We are on Facebook. So you can try searching that, and hopefully the algorithm agrees. And yeah, once again, thanks for watching.